Nabila joined us. I can see that. Fahad
Yeah,
joined.
I see Nabila as well. Fahad.
Yeah.
Hey guys, how are y'all doing?
Hey, I'm Nabila. I'm good. How are you
You're
all?
doing well. Doing well, doing well. Fahad, how are you doing? Fahad, you're on mute. There's a mute button that you can unmute. For all our new students and old students, if anybody's joining, please turn on your video so we can, we can kind of put the face to the names. And it's okay, nobody here judges.
Yeah, it would be nice to have.
Yeah, just to get an idea about. I mean, we saw you guys in interviews and such, but we'd like to see you. We would like everybody else to see you guys.
Yeah.
We have Amit who just joined us as well.
Omid just joined. Okay, sweet. Maybe we can wait for a couple more minutes and then start. We'll just kind of do a round of like all the mentors, and then we'll start the class very soon. Yeah.
And again, today's the first class. Today we will go. Hopefully, we'll go easy. Iftikhar is teaching it, right? Are you gonna go easy, or dive into something hard?
That's subjective.
Very true. See.
Yeah.
You can take the full stack class as well if you want. There's a good opportunity for you to take the full stack.
Thank you for the suggestion. I will right now respectfully decline.
Yeah.
But no, it is a good opportunity. Actually, I should look into it. Yeah. I do eventually want to take it actually, and this is the DevOps class.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that one.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got interested in DevOps recently. I'm just seeing. It's good to see. But yeah.
But no, I should definitely at least take a couple of classes. I took a machine learning. Well, I didn't take it. I was present during a machine learning class. I didn't understand a single thing, but I was there. Keeping the room warm.
Great. Yeah, I was thinking if any student is joining, I think we can probably start. We have like, let me see.
Are we missing? How many are we missing? So we can go up that.
I was expecting Mahmoud to join, but he's probably still not there. But anyway.
My request to all the talents. You already have all the your audio on mute, but if you can have your video on, just at least for the first like 5-10 minutes, we would appreciate it. At least when you're introducing yourself, so we can all see you, especially our awesome mentors that will be teaching, especially for them. But without further ado, Mentor Siam, is it okay if I get started?
Yeah, I think we can start. Yeah, let's start.
Wonderful. Welcome to the first class for fall, full stack. We'll jump more into details about the class itself, but today I believe we'll be teaching the front end part of it by Mentor Iftikhar, live from Toronto. He has a really wonderful resume, but I think he will go over his resume. So let me go over mine to kick things off. My name is Nazib Chaudhary. I'm from Houston, Texas. I graduated from University of Houston a few years ago, and I work for City of Houston currently. I'm a civil engineer, but my passion is in mentorship and leadership. I was very active in our community when I was in college, and I enjoy being active still as days go. Other than that, as far as Get Me Hired goes, I'm part of the admission and marketing team. I also do mentorship for personal development, helping people with their soft skills. If you have any weakness, non-technical weaknesses, I can help you. If it's technical weaknesses, we have wonderful mentors who can take care of it. And I also help with people's mock interviews and such. If you already haven't, please sign up for a one-on-one with me. You will hear this all the time from all the mentors, but please sign up one-on-one. They're only like 15 to 30 minutes depending on the mentor. And that way, not only we get to know you, but we can actually help you and give you proper feedback as you guys are becoming more and more part of Get Me Hired. With that being said, I would like to introduce Siam Hussain. And well, I'm passing the ball to Siam Hossain.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's better. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tanzim. So I'm Siam. I'll be basically your career slash strategic mentor, however you say it. I think career mentor is easier. So basically just helping you with job search, resume reviews, anything, any kind of decision making with your career, especially with immigration, because I have jumped through a couple of hoops to kind of like come to this like get this green card, which is so hard to get, especially in US. It's just unnecessarily very complicated. So yeah, anyone with immigration problems in general, like career based suggestions, I can do technology suggestions too, but as Tanzim said, there are very tech heavy people here who will be like better than me in that terms. But yeah, I can do basic technology based career suggestions too, because I have been working in technology myself for a long time. So yeah, any kind of and also I'll be coordinating this program. So anyone who has any problem with like just attending the classes, the class pace, the audio video quality, the recording, the any kind of feedback, just let me know. And we usually do like a kind of like a feedback after every class. So I'll pass you the feedback form. Yeah, but welcome to our first class, and super excited to get everyone on board. So yeah, I'll just pass my ball to mentor Saqib right now.
Yeah, thank you, Siam. Thanks for a good introduction of our program. So I'm Saqib. I'm basically leading the whole bootcamp, the technical bootcamp. So right now I'm actually I'm also working as a solution architect in Equifax in Canada. I have around 12 years of experience in software development. And yeah, I mean, if you guys need any help, let me know. I'll be always there. And so the way I actually we construct your program is we have three part of the full stack. And today is basically kind of like a starting of the of your course. Like we divided the whole full stack class into three part. So one course is front end, one is back end, and another one is DevOps. So we have one DevOps course is running. So some of you are actually in my other class. So I'm taking the DevOps course. So eventually you will also take the DevOps course. So the way it will actually happen, so every month we're gonna start a new course. So this month you're gonna actually start the front end course. Next month you're gonna actually join the backend course, and then on December we're gonna start the DevOps course again. So it's gonna run as a loop actually. So so you will actually you will be taking like two courses in parallel at a time. So this is strategy. So if so that you guys can get a shared load actually. And yeah, that is the strategy that we're planning. And yeah, and I think I'm gonna invite if they can right to actually introduce himself and start the class. Thank you.
I'll just jump in the middle just for a second. Anyone who is not talking, just mute yourself. And whenever you're talking, just unmute and talk. That way we can keep the noise level low. And yeah, take the ball, mentor Iftikhar.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay. I'll share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Awesome. As you can see, I started with a blank screen, so it's gonna be, I don't have any fancy slides or anything. So as I'm talking, I'll write few things here just to get the point across. So yes, welcome everyone to our full stack program, full stack software development program. And let me start by introducing myself. I am Iftekhar, Muhammad Iftekhar Chaudhary. I completed my undergraduate from Bangladesh, from North South University, and then in 2008 I came to Canada for graduate studies. I completed my master's and PhD from University of Western Ontario in London, Ontario. It's a city 2 hours from Toronto. And so my master's was in requirements engineering and software architecture. And then during my PhD, I worked in the video game domain, but topic was basically software engineering and human-computer interaction. After that, I worked part-time in a web development company and then joined Amazon as a software development engineer. And since then, I have been working at Amazon for close to 7 years. I'm currently a senior software engineer in consumer engagement technology team in Amazon Toronto. And yeah, so that's basically at a high level. I have been also, even before coming here, I worked in video game development and uh, web development in some telecom companies in Bangladesh. So overall, I have around close to 12 years of software development experience. So yeah, that's basically it about me. And then let's get started with today's topic. So since this is the introduction to full stack software development, I will go with some of the like very basic stuff as well, just to give you an idea about the overall landscape. Some of those things, if you are from a software engineering background or currently doing a graduate studies, might be like you might be already familiar with it, but you might still get one or two new ideas. And then but if you are a newcomer to the software industry and trying to consider a career there, then this might be a this might be a good idea to actually get a idea, get a sense of the overall picture. So the software development, basically we are implementing some software to satisfy some user need, right? And you all know, like what are softwares, all these basic things that we use on computer, starting from the notepad and then going to larger scale software like Google search engine, social network. All these are examples of softwares, right? So let me just give a little bit of idea about how a typical like software development process works. So basically in a typical software process, you start with some requirements. The requirements is basically some constraint or the things that you are trying to implement. And then from there, you go design / architect the software, and then you actually implement the software. Finally, you want to add test to your software and then deploy it somewhere so that the user can use it, and then collect metrics, get feedback about your software, and then basically also monitor maintenance, and then bug fixing, which is also part of maintenance basically, and then enhance from there. So like in a typical like old school model, this thing will happen one by another. Like you will initially try to gather all the requirements and then design something based on that. Then you will develop it, those kind of approach. But as with time, the process became more advanced. Now it's more like an iterative process. So basically, you get some requirements and then you basically design something, you do some coding, and then you deploy it, and it's called continuous deployment. So anything that you implement, you want it to quickly go to the user, and then so that the user can give some feedback. And then this is basically like a cycle that's going on. Any questions so far about the software development process? I'm trying to just give a high level idea.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and say the kind of like the new students. We have some old students here, but the new students, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask the question in the middle of the class. We definitely expect like active participation, but we'll also kind of like open a question and answer session at the end of this round. So you can definitely say that too. And yeah, you can use the chat window as well. I'll show you how to do that, but yeah. Andrew, if you go with it.
Okay. So now let's start with requirements. So what are like the requirements? Requirements is like something that says that what your software should do. And in a typical environment, people would say these terminologies like functional requirements, and then non-functional or quality requirements, something like that. Non-functional quality requirements. So functional requirements is basically something that your software should do. So it's things like this software should allow the user to log in. This software should allow the user to upload their picture, those kind of things. Those are the functional requirements. And then non-functional or quality requirements is something like it's not about what the software do, but rather, there are questions in the chat. Oh, okay. Okay. And then non-functional is like basically talking something about the quality of your system. So something like the software should be touch friendly. You should be able to touch and do something on it. And then the software should be multi-platform. It can be used from mobile and computer, browser, etc. And then it should be very fast. It should be always available. It should be very reliable. Like when a user is uploading something, it should work all the time. Those kind of things. Those are talking about the quality. The reason why I said this differentiated those two terminology is because one thing you will notice is that these quality requirements define your software architecture. So what does that mean? Like basically when you're saying that I need a calculator that can do addition, multiplication, it does not actually tell you what platform to use and etc. Those functions you can implement anywhere. That's why the functional requirements it will not give you an idea about the software design or the architecture. Whereas if someone says that I want to make a photo upload system that is cross-platform and it's available in multiple countries, something like that, which is talking about the quality, that will define how you will architect your software and what are some of the like design choices that you make for your software. So that is something good to keep in mind. Now we talked about requirements in a traditional sense. Nowadays, people don't talk talk about requirements in a traditional sense anymore. What they do is they use this term called user story. You will hear this thing a lot. So what is a user story? User story is also a requirements, but it is actually said from a user's point of view. And the reason for this is that we don't want to like make something that doesn't give user value. That's why like the user story term is used. So the user story is something like, as a Insta pic user, I want to log in to my profile. So something like that. So the benefit for user story is that, so the benefit of using user story rather than traditional requirements is that you will always drive to implement something that is demoable, that is you can show it to somebody and somebody can use it. So if you started with the traditional requirements, it will be like, we need a database where you can put the user's credential and etc. So somebody might start with that implementation. Somebody might go and create the database and then create a service that can insert data to that database, but the front end is not present there yet. And now you want to show it to a user, and there is no way to actually show it other than actually going to the database and showing that we implemented this part of feature. But if you go with a traditional, like a user story approach, then what will happen is that it will drive you that, okay, so maybe before I actually implement the backend or those kind of database, I should just create the form and give some feedback that what the user feels about it. And then basically I extend one step further, that as a Instapic user, I want that the software remembers me when I log in next time, those kind of things. And then now for everything, you are adding some business values. So that is all user story. One other thing in the software engineering process, as I said, that it is an iterative process, and it's also a cumulative process. Like you work with, it's a team effort. You work with other people, maybe other developer, manager, end customer, sometimes somebody who is actually not customer but advocating on behalf of the customer, like a product manager or something like that. So in a general terminology, these people are called stakeholders. So it is important to know who are your stakeholders. So if you are creating a photo upload photo upload application, and your users are basically people who most frequently use mobile, then you should have an interface where they can use this thing from mobile, or at least even if you just have a web-based tool, at least you should test it from the mobile. So that's why like knowing about the stakeholders are very important. Uh, and then develop. This is the part basically comes where we say that we use the terminology full stack developer, which is like the key idea here. I will actually go into more details of that soon, but so the developer is basically implementing the software. Like he is kind of like the key person in a sense for delivering these things. But there are also these other things like testing and deployment. Testing is very important. So you wrote your software and then you deployed it somewhere. But as time goes by, how do you know that when like software is not an artifact or that you create once and then it always stays like that? When you log into Facebook or when you log into some like Instagram and those tools, you see that often like new features are coming, new way to interact with them are coming. How do you make sure that when you are doing something new, it's not breaking things from old? So those are the things that's important for to make sure that you are doing testing. So there are these different kind of tests that you do. One is unit test. That's basically you are writing some small test for a specific part of your code. say you are a service Java service developer. You are implementing in Java. For each of your class, you write some unit tests that tests each of the public methods of that class. And then you also do some integration test. So with unit test, you are testing like part of the system. But how do you know that once you wrote this whole thing is working together? Maybe somebody went there and they made a small change to a class. It did not break any functionality of that class or whatever you unit tested for that class. But it is possible that the side effect of it is that is breaking something in the overall feature. So integration test is end-to-end testing. And then you also have something called acceptance test. That's basically like testing from a user point of view. So your software is a black box and you want a user to be able to test it. And these nowadays people are also moving towards automated acceptance tests. So in those automated acceptance tests, you are writing the test as a software, but it's actually testing as if it's a user. So it will basically go to the browser, click something, those kind of things. Like, so all these things, like, it's not that we need to know all these things to be able to say that we are a full stack developer. Many of these things you will only be able to learn after working in an industry for a longer period of time. But it's good to have a like an overall idea about the whole process to understand. Because if you are a software developer and if someone says that, oh, we're going to like make some changes to the integration test, and if you don't have idea, that doesn't look very good. Okay, and then deployment. So in a traditional sense, deployment is like putting your software to somewhere so that end users can use it, and then in a it's depending on your company, depending on who you are developing it for. Like deployment can be to a specific kind of server, typically like Linux server and etc. So previously, when somebody said if someone would ask for a full stack developer, they would also expect that you know a little bit of Linux, actually not a little bit, like a sufficient knowledge. But now that more and more the companies are moving to cloud, like they are using fully managed system, for example, AWS or Google Cloud Services or Azure from Microsoft. So people are now, the full stack developers are more focusing to learn those specific services rather than going to the nitty-gritty of like the hardware specific or operating system specific nitty-gritties. So yeah, that is basically in a general sense how software development looks like. So when now you will often see that people are asking for full stack developer or somebody who has some experience in full stack development. Now, when they say that, so when they say that, what are like some of the key things that you should know to advertise yourself that, yeah, I can work as a full stack developer. So you should have some front-end expertise. You should have some back-end expertise, and you should also have some DevOps expertise. So I'll go into what each of those encompasses. So for front end, you should know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and possibly one or more front end framework. In our case, we are focusing on Angular, but you should like either know Angular or React.js or some of the other front end framework. And the thing is that if you know one of this framework, it becomes very easier to understand the concept in the other frameworks. Like the learning curve becomes a lot easier. In the backend side, you should know one of the backend technologies, .NET or Java, but Java is definitely like the most prominent. In our case, we focus on Java, and then basically, if you know Java, it's basically covers a lot of your backend, and you should be able to actually quickly learn if your company need anything else specific, and also some database, like some SQL database like MySQL or some NoSQL database for the front for the backend. And then for DevOps stuff, as I said, you can know about a specific operating system environment and how to do some debugging there. But more and more people are focusing on managed services like AWS. And our DevOps course focuses on this. So if you know a combination of these, then basically you can say that, yes, I am a full stack developer. And that actually, rather than just knowing one of these technology, even if you like know a little bit about each of them and just be expert in one of them, you will still be considered a full stack developer. And if you ask about like how long do I need to be a proficient full stack developer, that is, you will get different answer from different people, and it's actually something very difficult to specifically answer. And then it will depend on like you're actually working in those. But just to start with, to implement something which touches each of these will give you a exposure to full stack software development. I can talk more about scalable architecture, but let's actually like go to our front end side first, because you got a little bit of idea about the whole process and how it looks like. Like in a typical software, what will happen is that your front end implemented in one of these front end technology will talk to some Java service that is implemented in Java and which interacts with some database, and that is basically like a typical architecture. Now, how to make that that architecture scalable and secure and more robust, some of those you actually will learn in the DevOps course. And also beside database, you might need other storage to store your information. The example we'll be using is like something close to Instagram, like a photo uploading and sharing application, like the bare bones of it, but it will require you to store some metadata information in one of the database, but you need to actually store the file as well, which you will be storing. In our case, we will be storing in Amazon S3, so you will learn that too. Okay. Any questions so far? Because we are kind of give a high level idea about software development and then different steps of it, and then some additional information about the process and who are the stakeholders, what does requirements look like. Any question about what we have covered so far?
I actually have a question. So for the unit testing and basically this acceptance testing, like is it that usually it's the duty of the testers, right? Like it's a QA or tester's job? Like, does it happen that the full stack developer might have to tackle that as well, like in terms of job responsibility?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, uh, like, yes, there are specific roles for those, and then in many companies it will be like a different job role, but slowly a lot of companies, especially the big companies, they are moving to the approach where there is no dedicated person for quality assurance. Quality assurance is actually part of the software development process. And the reason why they are doing this is because, say you implemented some software and then somebody else is supporting it. You are not getting the pain that they are facing, and then you don't know like when to improve your software, which part to like focus on. But if maintaining the software, like when a user faces a problem and they creates a ticket, if you need to fix that, then what will happen is that soon you will see that some of the developers saying that, you know, this particular module that resizes photo, it's basically, it gives us so much error. It's like every day there is like 5 tickets on it and we need to go through it, and then the code is like really spaghetti code. It's really hard to debug, and somebody implemented 5 years ago, we should fix it. And then the manager will say that, yeah, that's actually a very good call out, let's spend some time from the sprint to like fix that. And then the developers will actually like kind of re-architect that part. Whereas from a typical quality assurance point of view, like, oh, we're getting 5 tickets, but those are very easy to solve. You basically need to go to this place and delete this file and rerun the process and it will work. And what it might happen is that it keeps on, that kind of thing keeps on piling, because from quality assurance point of view, it's not that much effort. And also, like, it's hard for them to anticipate like how it will become more and more difficult to fix in the future. Uh, so that's why this is like now becoming more part of uh, core full stack development. But even if it's not part of the development, like, just to have an idea about what are these things, that actually like gives an idea, like it makes it actually better for the developer. Like they can, uh, it gives them the vocabulary to talk to the testers.
Got it. And I think that clarifies my question. Are they, I mean, I have not been in technology field for a while. I used to have like, there used to be like Selenium and like other stuff for like, basically just like, are the developers eventually like expected, like, is it a good thing to even know those languages as well? Or it's just the vocabulary is fine, basically. That's what I'm thinking for the first timer job.
Yeah, uh, for a beginner, just to know the vocabulary and high level idea, and if they did like, if they have just like maybe even if someone doesn't know the platforms, like how to do unit testing and etc., if they understand the concept of testing, that okay, I wrote a class that does these things, and I wrote another class that basically calls this class and makes sure that it's doing the job. That is like a high level concept of unit testing. And then I wrote some other test that basically checks couple of classes together, the whole program, and it's integration test. If someone has like that kind of understanding, then depending on when he joins the company, he will be able to like pick up those things from company specific technology. And for testing, like for the other part, like uh, for the other development, like the amount of expertise somebody need for testing, they usually don't need that much expertise. If they have some examples, they can basically follow those examples and keep adding more testing. One interesting thing here is that if someone tries to test their code and then they see that it's becoming difficult for that code to test, it actually gives an idea that the software is not well designed. If a software is well designed, it's usually easy to test. And if the software is not well designed, so it basically, from that point of view also, like if you are working with a tester and the tester says that, oh, it's very difficult to test your class, I need to mock too many things and etc. And then you have some private class, private method, I can't actually like effectively test those. So those kind of things gives you an idea that, oh, I probably did something wrong with my implementation.
Got it. Okay, thanks for explaining. I think there are two more questions from the students. Nabila and Shagufta asked some things. What is S3? Nabila asked, good question, very good question. What is S3? You'll know more of it in the DevOps class, but I think the generic idea.
Yeah. So S3 is short for, Siam, did you want to continue?
No.
Okay.
I was just asking for you. Yeah.
Yeah. S3 is a AWS service. It's called Simple Storage Service. And it's basically like in a high level, it's like a file storage. So you have your you can call AWS specific APIs to store some files, and yeah, you will definitely get more idea about this. Sakib goes into like a lot of details in the DevOps class for that. S3 is one of the earliest service that Amazon launched. I missed the part about stakeholders. So I was mentioning that like software development, like as much as it's like a process of different activities, it also involves a lot of people. Those are we call stakeholders. To give an example, if you are creating a medical software per se, then like hospital owners, some doctors, some patients, and then these are some of your stakeholders. You need to like look from each of their point of view, and then you might, if you ignore a key stakeholder, you might miss some important requirements. For example, you created a software for a medical system, but you did not talk to the pharmacist or like the drug supply chain people from that field. Then later you might figure out that you have to ask some other information to the patient. For example, what are they allergic to, what is their age, or something like that, that you need for the requirements from that domain. So thinking about like who are all the stakeholders. Okay, yeah, so I will now jump to our introduction to HTML, CSS content. So we are today introducing to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and these are some of the things we'll be covering. So what is web? Web, we actually defined here, is the most ubiquitous computing platform. It's basically the World Wide Web, all the websites that we visit, which runs on top of the internet using HTTP. HTTP is like the protocol that used for the communication between these different web resources. And it allows user to access web services, request resources, for example, pages, images, etc., and transmit data between them. You can probably have a high-level idea about client and server. Client is basically something that is close to the user. For example, if you're using a browser, that's like a client. and then server is where the logic is running. URLs. So uniform resource locator. So when we are talking about a website, we refer to something like this, an URL, right? But there are like different part of this URL. One is, for example, the protocol. So this HTTP, whether it's HTTP like regular HTTP or whether it's secure HTTP. HTTP is the short form for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And then domain is this thing. It's like it's a user-friendly name for the server. And behind this is actually an IP address. When you are typing this domain name, it's actually going to a particular IP address or a machine. And then for large websites, it's actually like not one machine. It can be many machines. And then what you are initially getting is like a virtual IP address. So you are talking to this virtual IP address, like your domain name is going to that virtual IP address. And then behind the virtual IP address is a load balancer. And behind that is hundreds, sometimes thousands of servers serving the application. And depending on the user load, which machine is free, the request is going there. Those are all parts of creating a scalable software. And then nowadays it's becoming so easy to like create something like very scalable because AWS and Azure, they allow you to scale on demand. So say you created a small photo creation application and it only needs like one or two machine, and you just take that from AWS and your application is running there. Now you want to showcase your application in a hackathon or to a fair, and then you know that on that day a lot of people will try it, and you provision some hardware that when there are many requests coming, I need more host, and it will become available. It's almost as easy as I'm saying. Okay, what other things are there? Port, usually not shown, but for default to HTTP it's 80 or 443 if you are running on a secure server. And then HTTPS is now becoming like almost mandatory for many of the things. Like if you are especially handling with payment or something like that, you wouldn't want to use HTTP. You basically want to use secure HTTP so that the communication between the client and server is encrypted, and somebody from the middle, if they tries to get some information from there, they will only see encrypted message. They will not be able to see the actual message. Origin, that's the combination of protocol, domain, and port. It gives a unique origin. The path is like the file structure where you are going there, and then you can have query like more variables at the end. I'm going this a little bit fast just because I assume that you know like some of these basics from just like going to websites, but if you have any question at any moment, please stop me. So as I said, it's client server, they are communicating, and what happens is that when you type something on the browser or you submit a form, you're basically making a request to the server. And these requests can be of this different form. Get request to retrieve data given a URL. Post request. So post also like similar to get, but in the get, the variables, it goes to the URL as a query variables. It post, it goes as a post data. You don't see that on the URL. It often creates a new resource. So basically post is used for, say you are submitting a form to send a mail or something like that. Put is for updating an existing resource, and then delete it for deleting resource. It's just to have an idea about these are the different kind of requests that you make, HTTP request. And then you get a HTTP response back, and with the response, you have a payload, and also you get a response code. And if the response code is 1xx, it's information response. If it's 200, it's usually okay. So what I mean by that, if I say open the developer console, and if you go there, if I try here, you will see that here it's actually not one, like many requests are going, because it's requesting for this page, it's requesting so many resources. And then if you see the status, you'll see that this lot of these are 200, right? Which is expected because it's basically all of these are successful. And then some of them might have 3x's if it's redirected to somewhere. Let me try a redirection. So when Amazon was initially founded, Jeff Bezos thought that he will name his company relentless.com. Relentless.com. So he bought that domain, and then even today, if you type relentless.com, it redirects to Amazon.com. So that was a 300 request. As you can see, there was some couple of 302 that you could see. Okay, now let's go to a little bit more details of HTML. So HTML is hypertext markup language. What does like markup language means? Markup language means that so you are writing some content and you are also giving markup or tags that is telling how to format that content. So you are basically telling it how to display that content. So here are some of the example. You have tags there. So these are, a tag is something that starts with this bracket and then ends with these other brackets. For example, image tag is like this, img. Element is, so this is an opening tag, h1, and then at the end you have /h1. That is an ending tag. So this starting tag to ending tag, that is like an element. And then element can be nested. Within one element, there can be another element, multiple elements, basically. And then when you are doing a tag can have attributes. Attributes is like a key value pair and sometimes just key. For example, here we have a tag with the ID. So this ID is the name of the attributes and the value is error message. Whereas another tag is just hidden. It doesn't need a value. I have a link there to see the list of all common attributes. And then entity. Entity is for a special text that should not be confused with HTML markup. So we are using this left and this symbol for tag, right? What if you want to show this particular symbol in your website? How do you do? Then you use the entity. For example, &LT : that is for this. And you might say that how did they come up with this thing? So it's basically ampersand less than. So this is a less than symbol, that's why LT. And if you can understand that &GT will be the other symbol. And then &NBSP, that is a space. I don't know how they came up with this name, NBSP. Yeah, it's for single white space. And &AMP is for the actual and symbol. Here is a basic HTML page, very basic. How do we test something like this? There's a website called JS Fiddle. If you are learning HTML, or even if you are an expert developer, but you just want to test something as small, you can use this tool. So it has this HTML, CSS, JavaScript section, and finally here it shows the result. So if you type this and if you run, here it will show the result. Let's see what is happening in this. And you can actually like change something here and see that it shows up. Yeah. And then you can add that for making it bold. it will not actually like H is already bolded. So maybe I'll try underline. Yeah. So let's break down and look what is happening here. This doc type HTML is telling the browser that it is an HTML document. It could be CSS or something else. And then the HTML to /HTML, that is my content section. And then we have head here. It provides information about the document as opposed to actual content. So for example, title, that is what it appears here. That's the title. And then the body starts, and it also, like here, we have a meta. It's an example of some metadata. It's saying that what character set we are using. And then we have body here, and in the body, we have nested, another nested element, and then and header H1 element. So this H1 is like a heading element, and you can have different H, for example, H1, H2, and depending on that, I'll show you the size. So as you can see, it became a little bit smaller. You can use H3, it will be even more smaller. So you have all the way to H6. Here are some of the common HTML elements. For text content, we have div, ul, ul. Div is a generic container. Basically, whenever you are creating div, it's almost as if like you are having a block of content basically. So say if you have one div here and then here, it doesn't matter whether you write it in 3 line or if you write it in 1 line, it's the same result. But notice the difference here. So here I am writing some 2. As you say, even though I wrote it here, because of the div, it came on the second line. So the divs are getting separated that way. OL is for ordered list. How does that look like? So within OL, I started an ordered list and I am creating some item. Li is for list item. So another li. And it is appearing in the order list. I did not have to give those number. Instead of OL, if you used UL, that will be unordered. So it used this bulleted list instead of numbers. So list item, P for paragraph, block quote for quotation, inline text. We also use elements within larger text content to indicate that certain word to emphasize something is doing something. So one example could be, hi, click here to go to my web page, right? So you want the user to be able to click here. So just this one word is becoming an anchor, a tag. If you run that, you see that. So I need to actually provide some attribute. So where do you want the user to go to? So I provided the URL. Now if you see that this is now clickable and you can click there to go to that web page. Here we have image tag for multimedia, like image. So this is very similar to the href tag, but instead of href, we have the source here. In the source, you basically give the URL for the image, and then you give the width of the image. Let's try this out. See if we just have that. So it's showing the image here. We can increase the width. And it's basically automatically resizes unless you specifically also gives it the height. Otherwise it will automatically do it. But if you say, it will use those. So if here I gave URL of a remote image, but if your image is on the same place where your code is, you can also give relative path rather than this absolute path. Absolute path is like HTTP : like a specific place where you can actually find the image, but the relative path is something like this. We have an example of audio control. And so once you have these, you can basically just replace it with your audio and you can play that audio. Yeah. You can also have video content like that. So one thing to know is that yeah. So some of these things, as you work, you will like know them, but you will rarely find somebody who knows all these things by heart. That even without looking anywhere, they can be able to type it. But you need to know those things, like the terminology to what to search for. So now you know that if you need something like this, you will search for HTML5 video tag to embed video on a page, and then you will get this code. And then now, once you understand that what is happening here, you will be able to like modify that to get the response that you are looking for. We have an example of canvas here, where if you want to use your browser to do some drawing, you can do that using canvas on the browser. If you are making something that interactive, so here a canvas line, that's basically drawing those lines. Okay. Script. So we create dynamic web content and applications through using scripting. So scripting, so you are using, so when you see this script tag, you are typically writing some JavaScript there. So in this case, we have an example of a very simple script. Hello world. It will basically give this hello world pop-up for you. One other important element is table. You will often see that in different website, content is formatted using table. So table is like a grid kind of a structure. You know, basically what you see in Excel file. If you want to create something like that, here we have an example of a table. Let's just copy paste that for now, and then we'll make some modification there. So here's the table. Order information is the caption of the table, and then this is the head, and then we have this cell in the head, and then so let's remove that one and let's see how the table looks. And then it's not showing any border, so it's difficult to understand. But this is how the table is. And as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows here. So you will see that tier slash tier, one row, tier slash tier, another row, tier slash tier, another row, and finally this is the footer row. And as you notice in the footer row, instead of like 3 cell, we have 2 cell here, and you combine the first two. So that's why it's th, this column span. Column span is basically column span. So instead of the first two, if you wanted to combine the first and the second, like the second and the third one, just basically need to do it that way. So the second two got combined. And you could use the same approach for combining rows. So here blue, $3. So if you wanted to combine that, so this would be instead of column span, row span. And so this row will take, like this cell will take 2 rows. So we don't need this value. So I just remove this one. And as you can see, this took the row span. And then, so you can basically create this kind of tabular information, which is often helpful for showing some information, showing some data in a tabular format. If you're showing a report or something like that, it'll be useful for something. Empty elements. Many of the elements we have seen so far begin with an opening tag and end with closing tag, but some of them are not. So BR is one of the example. HR is another example. Let's see what is BR and HR. So I have some text here. BR. Other text here. So it basically created a break here. And then after this, I am putting in feature and then under the line. So it is creating a horizontal rule, HR for horizontal rule, BR for break. So when you see a horizontal rule, it's creating these. These are called empty elements. And then form, another important part. You have definitely seen many forms, submitted many forms. It's basically something like this. So how does it look like? A form, it has this attribute called action. Action is basically when you submit the form, where that information should go. What method you are using. Do you remember we at the beginning we discussed get and post, whether using get method or post method. Get is used when you are using the form for submitting something like a search query or something like that. Or a post is used for when you are like login. You don't want your username password to appear on the URL, right? And then label, which is basically like this thing, this label. And then you have this input field. So in the input field, you're saying what kind of input it is. One is text versus password. So let's put a break here. We already learned how to do break. Make it nicer. Break. Okay, break in the wrong place. Right here. So it looks like this. Another break or horizontal rule here. Again, wrong place. Okay. So the different kind of input field. See the type equals to text versus type equals to password. When I am typing something in the text field, it's showing up. But when I'm typing something in the password field, it doesn't show up, right? And then what other kind of field we could have? We could use input type equals to date. And let's see if it understands that it's a date field. It gives me a date picker. And then type equals to style, I think. So it created a file. I can click that to browse some file, etc. These are the different type of fields that you can input type that you can use. Document object model. So when I am writing a HTML page like this, what my browser is doing is it's actually creating a tree like this. Like at the high level is the HTML, and then it has a head, and then the body, and within the body it has H1, P, and within this P element there is an A element nested, and within the UL I have bunch of LI. Why are we showing this visualization? Because like when you create an interactive website, you are basically modifying this tree. So when you write some JavaScript to add an extra item here, it will be modifying this tree. That's why having an understanding of how the document object model, the browser keys, the document object model is basically, it's good to understand. CSS. Now we have some HTML content, and now we want to like do some styling. How can we do that? Say we wrote something like span some content. And now I can write here a style and put some style information. So it became blue. So this is like some style. So in a website you can do this kind of inline styling, but then soon it will become like very unmanageable. Like for a large website, think about it. If you need to do this everywhere, and then if you suddenly want to decide that, okay, blue is not my favorite color anymore, I want to make everything pink, it becomes very difficult going to each of those places, making those color changes, and etc. That's where CSS comes in hand. So what CSS allow is basically define those somewhere else, like slightly separately. And a CSS syntax is like this. It's a rule. So as part of the rule, you have a selector, and then you are telling one or more declaration about what is happening. So here we have a selector. Let's try this. So without that style, if we write a H1 header, here will be like a header like this. But now if we add that style, The font size is too small. So it became blue. The benefit is that it also reusable. If I create another H1, I don't have to specifically say because it's actually using the same selector. I am selecting based on the type of the tag. So what are the different thing you can, here is another example. And you're basically doing it based on P. So what are the different, before going to different kind of selector, basically, as I already said, there are different way to do a style. One is you can do inline like this, and then internal embedded, the one I just showed, that you have this style slash style tag, and there you have all your style and then your content style. The most commonly used approach is basically in the header you have a link rel equals to style sheet, and then is in this CSS file you wrote all those styles. So your CSS and HTML file are totally separate file. You are just using this link to bring that one here. So here are the different tag types. You can have AHP, those tag, and then you can have a class. So for example, here I have a class. So the benefit of class is that, see if we use so 2H1, one of them, both of them got this H1 related stuff, but one of them is using this class attribute. So that one, addition to H1, it took the class related thing from here. And then now if you create another tag, you could also use a class here. Yeah. So the benefit of using something like this is all the related stuff you could use a class. For example, everywhere you are showing a username, you want to do a italic. So you could create a class for italic, and then all those things, whether it's a header or regular content, you could use that italic class to make it italic. As a full stack developer, you don't need to understand CSS in that details. Usually, like in big companies, it will be there will be responsible. Not even in big company, in reasonable size company, there will be people for front end specific role. And then nowadays there are also like libraries like Twitter Bootstrap, where they already defined all the standard style that you should do, and then you can basically import their style sheet and start referring to those classes. But it's better to have a high level idea so that when you are looking at the code, you are not completely lost, right? And you can also do ID. So here is an example of ID. So class starts with dot and ID starts with hash, and then ID is for targeting more specifically. So you can specifically like, if you do something for a div, you'll be to apply to all div. If you use a class, it will be applied to everybody using the class. But ID is usually used for a specific element. So you can do it for a specific element. Oh, also you can do it based on context. For example, here you can see that there are two things: div p, then font size. That means if a p is nested within a div, then it will be applied. Otherwise, it will not be applied. Let's see it in action. It's hard to tell here. Let's make the font size. be there. Okay, so you see we have one P here that is outside the div. That's why it did not get that styling. This P paragraph is within the div. That's why these two got this. As soon as I take this one P out of the div, it will not have that style anymore. Grouping, you can also group bunch of them like H1, H2, H3. All of them will have the same font family. We're telling it at once to make it easier. And then you saw that we are using some color. So you can use color in 3 different ways. You can have this kind of hexadecimal code for color, and if you search online, how can I get a hexadecimal code for a specific color? It will give you tools to get hexadecimal color. So you can basically use a tool like this to select a specific page, and here, like as I am clicking on something, showing me the color, and it is also giving me the hexa code, RGB code, and HSV code for that color that I can use. If you want to like select it from an image, you can do that. Finally, we have JavaScript. JavaScript, as you say, so without JavaScript, these pages are like basically just the content. But if you want to add some activity there, some responsiveness, then JavaScript allows you to do that. One example is client-side validation. So I have an example here. Let me just copy that, and then we'll do additional modification there. So let's see what we are doing here. So we have a div for error message, and it's empty. We don't have any content in this div. Let's say error. Well, here you can see that this is where the div is, but without the content, you can't even tell that it's present there, right? And then we have a form here. Label for age is age, and then input ID is age, name is age, and then type of the field is text, so that a user can input a text here. And now we're writing some JavaScript. So we have a variable here, info form document dot get element by ID. So we basically selected that form. This is the name of the form. Sorry, ID of the form. So get element by ID, we selected the form, and then we are writing some functionality. This form dot on submit. What is happening? This function will get executed. What is the function? So we are first getting the error message element, which is this one, and then we took the age from the age field, and then if age is not a number, we are saying that age should be a valid number. Else, we are saying that the inner HTML of this error field is age looks valid. And finally, we are returning false because it's a form submit. If we don't return false, the form will actually get submit. In this case, we don't want to submit the form somewhere. We just want to print something in the page. So let's give it a test. If I write 5 here, age looks valid. If I write a name, age should be a valid number. Valid also if we write -5, age looks valid, which should not be the case. So we can add this extra case here. Else if case, else if age is less than 0, then error message should be So positive number, age looks valid. Age should be a valid number. Negative number. Yeah, so we added a new case here. Ajax. Ajax stands for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So it's basically like you are using JavaScript, but you are making a call to a remote resource. You are not just working within your form, you are calling a remote resource to do something. So as you know that when we go to like a Facebook page and we click on a link, not link, like a button or something to like something, it doesn't actually, like the page doesn't get loaded. Or so what happens there is that it actually makes an XML AJAX request so that the page doesn't get loaded. It just makes an AJAX request to get something from a remote resource, or like putting something in a remote call, and then it just gives you a new count, how many people liked. So here we have an AJAX example, and it's calling this URL, which gives the last 24 hours Bitcoin value, which is always good to know. Yeah, it's giving this Bitcoin value. So we want to call this remote place and then show the Bitcoin value in our page. So let's print that here. Bitcoin price in USD 8085.78. So what is happening? So Bitcoin price in USD, and we have an empty span similar to the previous example. And now we started a script, and we created a function here, function get current value. What it is doing, it is creating this XML HTTP request object that's already defined as part of your browser. And then you are going to call this URL. So I declared two variables, one for the XML HTTP request object that I'll be using to call the remote resource. And then here I have the URL. And then I am defining the function. What happens? If it successfully loads, then I get the response. And then I take the span from here, the Bitcoin value, and then I put the inner HTML equals to this response plus USD. If it's an error, I do something else. Currently, like we're not handling the error case, and then MD saying that we should open a GET request to the URL and sending it when this function get called. And at the end, when the window is loading, basically this page is refreshed, we call this function. Very simple. Now, since we have two examples, let's try to create which is a combination from these two examples. So let's copy this example here. Copy this example. So so it's doing that previous thing that we were doing. But let's say we want to use it slightly differently here. When someone types, instead of age, we'll take the input of how many Bitcoins you have, and then we want to calculate the value of that Bitcoin. So now so I don't need this. Okay, so it's better to just do the minimum modification so that it works, and then we'll get rid of the other stuff. So let's say we call this and then ID is name is Bitcoin, and we have this form, and when the form is submitted, we basically call this function again. We don't need this. We basically call this function again. Actually, we'll need one thing from here. We'll need this field. So everything else we delete. We call that function get current value. And when get current value is called, within that function, what we want to do here is we want to take that whatever the user typed there in the Bitcoin field, we want to take that value, Bitcoin, and then we want to multiply that to response. So response multiply Bitcoin. That should do it. So if I run it, initially is 0 because no value is given. If I type 1 here, it calculated that. If I do, I have 0.123. I will calculate the value accordingly. Yeah, so we did some run through some of the common HTML stuff. We take a look at CSS and how to separate your styling from your content, and then we did JavaScript to basically validate something. Frequently you won't be writing this kind of JavaScript manually, but you will be using, for example, in our case, we will be using AngularJS, and AngularJS will have a way to handle a lot of these things under the hood. They have the library and etc., but it's still better to know these concepts. So at a high level, that's everything I wanted to cover. Any question or comment? So I would also like to take your attendance because we want to keep track of all the people that is attending the course. So, everybody is very quiet. Can someone say something to make sure that I can actually hear you guys? Anybody?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, awesome. Comment from Arif. I worked on HTML, CSS before, but learned some new basic stuff today. Thanks. Is there going to be any assignment? Yes. We'll have a basic assignment. I will go to that. And then I would also like to show you how you are going to share the assignment with me. But let me just quickly go through the attendance. And then if you are present, just say yes or send a message either will work. Sabrina. Sabrina, are you present? Okay, I will go with no. Sakib, you need to give me, if Sakib is present, you need to give me edit access. Is Sakib present on the call? Is Sakib present on the call? Okay, I will just keep a screenshot of the participants, and I think I can use that to fill it up later. Okay, so the assignment for today's class is actually so going through these Udemy courses. If you can spend some time on that, especially if you are new to web development, then it will be very beneficial for you. So I am linking the doc, and then basically for next class, create your resume in HTML5 and use these following elements. And as a bonus, at the end of the resume, you can also create a form in your HTML resume to contact you. So that is basically your homework. And the way we are encouraging people to submit homework is actually basically do the homework and then create a 30 seconds video of it, and then upload the video to YouTube, and then send us the link. Just 30 seconds should be good enough. And you might think that it'll take a lot of effort, but those who are in the DevOps class, they already know, but I'm gonna show this tool. It's called Awesome Screenshot. So what you can do is, if you search for Awesome Screenshot, this is a Chrome extension that you can add to Chrome. And once you have it on Chrome, then recording it very straightforward. You can just click on it, capture visual part of the page, and then you can do record screen, text off, start recording. and it is showing here what your record, how much time it's going. And then if you click on that, once you are done, if you want to record something more than 30 seconds, you can create like two of those videos, but in most cases 30 seconds should be sufficient. Just show. But once you have it, if you stop it, I'll show you the video. And from here, you also can directly upload to YouTube to your account, and then it'll give you, it's very straightforward. So in my case, since you're asking me, so it is uploading the YouTube video. And then you can share this URL with us, and we'll be able to, you can share this in the channel for this class. And then we'll be able to check the homework from there. Okay, that's it for how to submit the homework. Any question for the class in general, and any question for the homework? I will request you guys to wait a little bit, because Siam would like to ask you some questions. And
Hello. Hi everyone. Hi. I was actually kind of like muted. So, okay. I just wanted to kind of like have a request, especially to the new students, because you are like probably still not used to our platform. So whenever you have any friction about anything, just definitely let us know. I just shared a Google form link here. This is a feedback survey Google form. So please give us a survey about the class. It makes us improve our classes. I think we have some students who are already in our class for a while. So for them, you probably know how the process works, but I would say like it takes just 1 minute, not even a minute, like 30 seconds to give the survey. So if you can just submit the anonymous survey and feedback about the class, that would mean a lot. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. And thank you, I appreciate that. And yeah, if they can, you can, it's all yours again.
yeah, we're good for today's class. Oh, actually, before we leave, since this is the first class, and we discussed the software development process, and we also started with the content, but this is a very hands-on course. Like as you saw, that even just for HTML CSS, we did some work on JS Fiddle to get our hands dirty with it, so that we can actually work with the code. And as you can see, that the best way to learn something is actually like working on those. So please work on your homework. Like if you get stuck somewhere, ask us for help. But unless you do this yourself, you won't be able to say that you actually did this. And then today is like very basics, but in the next class we will set up our first Angular application. And then previously what we did is on the service side, the teacher would teach the service, implementing the Java service and connecting to the database. And then in the Angular class, we will show how to talk to that. And then that creates a lot of like interaction between those two, which is like good in a real life scenario, but when we're teaching it, it can become a little bit difficult. So that's why what we are doing here this time is now we are focusing on the front end side. So the back end side is already implemented. Just assume that it's there, and then we'll just use the front end to use those backend services to finish the front end part. But once we finish the front end course, which is not very long, then we'll start the backend class, and at that time you will see that how those services that you already used were implemented. So by the time you finish the front end and back end, you have an idea about the whole application. And the domain that we will be using is a photo sharing domain. Basically, we want to create an application where the user can log in using their Google or Facebook ID, and then they can create some album and they can upload photos. And they can also look at other people's photos, what they have uploaded recently, and then some additional use cases from there. But just to give you an idea about what we will be working on to get you excited. And then we'll finish the key requirements for this within the class hours and including the homeworks. So if you finish, if you attend all the classes and if you finish the homework, you will be able to say that, confidently someone that I can basically create an application like this, and then you can translate that knowledge to whatever domain. If you want to create that, okay, now I know how to upload a photo and see that in a gallery. Now I want to go and create an application where somebody can basically give feedback about something and then upload a photo of how that thing is working. Or something like that. Or I want to create a system where somebody can upload their resume and attach a photo or a file of their resume. You will be able to, you should be able to do that based on the knowledge that you get from this class. Okay, that's it for me. Unless you guys have any question, I'll take off. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a good night. See you guys next week.